This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Welcome to What's News Dunedin, brought to you by Hazur Kebab, the radio show that spawned from the 22,000 plus strong local Oti-Poti Dunedin What's News Dunedin Facebook group. The group that's been putting the social back into social media since 2020 with respectful adult debate and a sense of humour. I'm your host, Richard Knights. On today's show, we'll be talking to our wonderful guest, Duncan Connors, who'll be talking to us about the war in Iran, tell us a bit more about themselves and what they do, as well as helping us look back at the posts that have generated the most interactions over the past 7 days on the What's News Dunedin Facebook group. Those posts this week are Councillor Ong being asked to resign by 10 of his peers following his serious breach of the Code of Conduct. The government's announcement that 143,000 families will get an extra $50 per week as part of their work tax credit as their way of helping in the current fuel crisis. And ACT Deputy Leader Brooke Van Velden standing down at the next election and what that means, if anything. Welcome to the show again, Duncan.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Returning guest, third time lucky on the show. This is, I've been counting. So you know how the format goes. You've got your three pop questions at the beginning, but there are three different questions every time you come on the show. Right? So as a third-time returner, you get the special third-time lucky questions as well.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know if we had a pun day last time, whether we had a joke or not. Well, we've had the pun day Monday on the page now for a little while. And what that means is everyone brings their best pun on the Monday, and that joins us on the show on Friday. So all we're trying to see with that is whether the joke comes off the page and makes it into the spoken word, as well as the laugh reacts that it gets on the group on a Monday morning. So the pun of the week for this week is, Dad, can you tell me what a solar eclipse is? No, son.
Took me a while, didn't it?
I like that one.
I do like that one.
I like that one.
I do
No,
like
son.
that one.
No, son. You kind of went, oh yeah, I get that one. Now, our three pop questions, because you are a returning guest, you've answered the first two lots of pop questions. This is the third. If you come back on the show, I'm going to have to make up a fourth one, all right? So this, that's not a problem. It gives me the lead into thinking. So our pop questions for you this time through are, and as a British person, hopefully this is a question we can agree on. I'm hoping when you're making a proper cup of tea. So when you're using a teapot to make a proper cup of tea, so you got the loose leaf tea in the pot, warming up. Do you put the milk in first to the cup or the milk in last?
This is an argument which my wife and I have, because I put in the milk first, and she says that it ruins the tea and how it stews because the milk is cold and it's supposed to be warm. She grew Spanish descent but grew up in Surrey. So I think Surrey, you know your cups of tea.
Yeah.
So I'm a milk in first kind of guy, but it's of course
with a teapot. So the milk. So this is the thing. This is the difference. Milk with a teapot. So if it's a tea bag, all right, and it goes in the cup, I'm with her. Like the milk goes in last, right? So you put the tea bag in, the water goes in, it stews, does its thing without being cooled down by the milk. And then you take the tea bag out and put the milk in, right? But this is with a teapot.
Oh.
And in which case, if it's a teapot for me, it's milk in first, so you get a little bit of milk in the bottom, and then you pour the tea in, and watch the colour change.
Oh no, it has to be milk in first from a teapot. Anything else is just wrong.
Well,
it's just absolutely no.
Yeah.
No, barbaric.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. So now, your second pop question is, who's your favourite Disney princess?
Crikey. I've never had to think of it before.
But that's why these questions are so kind of cutting edge, right under the skin, mate. Like, it puts you on the spot. Who's your favourite Disney princess?
Now, I do have aphasia sometimes, so I know the person. Aladdin. Who's the princess in Aladdin?
Oh, now
is it Jasmine?
Jasmine?
Okay, Princess Jasmine.
Princess Jasmine. Yeah. Yeah. See, for me, it would be Moana. Yeah, just because I love that film.
It's a great film.
It's a great film. It's just that's just my favourite. Previously, it was probably like Anya from Frozen, but I almost said Frozen Direct. I don't think she works there. That from the film Frozen. But at the moment, it's definitely Moana. Yeah.
You have problems with Frozen now that they've had a sequel?
No. I like sequels. Like Moana 2 was good.
I'm glad you can let it go.
I can.
We saw that coming, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Now here's the third and final question, and it's our thinker. Would you rather be filthy rich, like stupidly rich, and live 400 years ago, or be poor and live now?
Well, God.
So that puts you in the 1700 and something.
Oh, well, if I was in, let's say...
but filthy rich.
In Glasgow, Edinburgh, Scottish Enlightenment, which is the birth of the European Enlightenment, with that kind of money, Grand Tour. Oh, yeah, I think I want to be filthy rich back then, even if my life expectancy is not the same.
Half.
Yeah, half, yes.
half of what you can expect in the 21st century. I think I'll be the same, because I'm just envisaging those like giant feasts. Like, just literally where, I mean, they'll probably give you food poisoning, but like there's, literally where they got the whole pig and you just got the whole glutton thing that really appeals to my sense of food.
Yes,
and I think I would just genuinely be like, that would just be idyllic for me. Like, and have loads of money so I could afford those. I could afford those things.
Well,
and I could also afford a wig as well, which would obviously help with the hair loss.
Definitely. I mean, it's also much cheaper than the Regain I'm using now. Yes. I mean, also, I like the idea of the big feast, because I've been on the Atkins diet for the last 15 days and I'm utterly miserable about it. I'm dreaming of chips in my sleep.
Wow.
But I've lost about 7 or 8 kilos, so something's going right there.
That's okay. But I think do you wake up hungry? Because I often wake up starving, and I'm not on any kind of diet apart from the seafood diet. Where you eat seafood and you eat it. So, but are you waking up starving?
Yes, I am, and it's also the thing about when you lose. And I learned this when I was in the military and had to lose fat quickly before having to do something. Fat is mostly water. So not only do you wake up starving, but you have to get rid of that water as well. So you do the Atkins diet, and for the first few days, you wake up and you really need to go to the toilet, and then you start and it goes on and on and on. I think, is this because I'm 51 or is this? And it's shedding that water off your body.
Right.
So, yes.
But you're losing weight.
Yes, and I needed to.
But there you go. So it's obviously a good thing. So we've done the important part of the show now. To be fair. The rest is just just waffle around the outside. So and just letting our listeners know that we'll be finishing ever so slightly early today, just to allow you to lose some more weight with a brisk walk
to the hospital.
The hospital, going to do an appointment. When you got an appointment at the hospital, you can't miss it, right? So which is absolutely
very important.
So we'll finish at 10:02 today. So but that's no biggie. That means I get an early mark as well.
Go for coffee.
Exactly. It's like
seafood and eat it. Yes.
I reckon I might. Now, 3 topics of the week. So the first topic, big topic, is Councillor Ong being asked to resign by 10 of his peers following his serious breach of code of conduct, and that was at the council meeting on Wednesday. It's been an accumulation of a large number of events, a large number of online posts, a large number of interactions from council and CEO and other people towards him in order to try and get him to rein in some of the behaviour that he's had, and most of it, and it's all fallen on deaf ears, as far as I can tell. Now, I've been keeping a fairly close eye on this as we've been going through the process. Now, on Wednesday, the council took the fairly unusual, it doesn't happen very often, unusual route of not only acknowledging the report that came from Steph Dryberg about the code of conduct complaint, where he's found to have breached. She found a very serious breach of the code of conduct, but they've also asked him to resign. Now, that's kind of the most severe of all the kind of things that they could have asked. They could have asked for an apology. They could have asked for. They could have made a vote of no confidence. There's a whole number of things that they could do. Part of also on Wednesday as well, which was totally separate and very legally separate from the code of conduct complaint, was the removal of his board positions and his portfolio, which that stems from another incident with the mayor and rudeness and poor behaviour directed at the mayor and the CEO, where that resulted in a remuneration loss of $16,000 as well, where they've gone from being on a level playing field, which is what the mayor ultimately wanted. Her structure was to everyone to be paid equally. But he's kind of shot himself in the foot at that point and talked himself into. And something that was easily avoided. That part of it, in my mind, was easily. I might be jumping around a bit, but that was easily avoided because all he was asked to do was take down some comment that he put online and apologise, which is actually which genuinely, from a human being's point of view, those things aren't actually particularly onerous. But he has chosen the different path and seems to be quite happy to court the controversy in a way that. And I'll say it, even Councillor Vandervis hasn't in the past. What are your thoughts and feelings on that?
Well, he's a highly incongruous fellow, Mr. Ong, and I'm wondering which audience he's playing for, because there's performative behaviour here. I mean, before getting into him specifically, and he's more than welcome to have a conversation with me. Maybe there's a gap on this show. But the code, we need to reform our laws when it comes to council. Over a proper investigation was held. Over 2/3 of the councillors asking to resign.
Yep.
Now, natural law suggests he should have recourse to the responsible minister for local government. And if they agree, well, there should be a by-election.
Yeah.
Or, as happens now in many countries, including the UK, 5% of the electorate signs a petition asking for his recall. He's recalled, and he stands for election again. That needs to be embedded within our laws.
And that's the trouble here now. Is I find it really weird that you can that like Labour or National or whatever can eject and sack an MP. But at local council level, it's almost like you are completely impervious. You can do anything you like apart from commit a crime that's got a 2-year sentence or more, and you've got to be found guilty of that crime, or you can just choose to stay.
You could. I mean, his behaviour is unacceptable.
Yep.
It shows an ignorance of not only the norms of Dunedin, because the other councillors also friends and family members of other people in this city. If you look at the Facebook comments, the social media comments, they're uniformly negative. One idea I've had is creating a Survey Monkey questionnaire. Do you agree he should resign? Yes or no? Placing it on What's News Dunedin, your competitor Dunedin News, and say, okay, people, do you think he should resign?
Yeah.
And see if we get a few thousand people.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't think the message would go through. Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, said that you should never treat people as a means to an end. And I have a very sneaking suspicion Benedict Ong is treating this city and its people as a means to an end to further, crikey, a Facebook career, a Weibo career, a WeChat career, an online career, because everything is performative.
You mentioned a couple of the things you just mentioned there are very much Chinese social media. You believe that that's where that's the audience he's playing to?
Well, I can't say that he is or he isn't, but I should, for a bit of drama at home, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a clipboard here where I've written down a few phrases in simplified Chinese. Classical's more my forte, and I've noticed that actually, whereas we're seeing a disruptive person in some of the Chinese media, and I have it on my computer in front of Richard here, it's comments like, using Kafka is just so creative. He's quite artistic in his response. He doesn't back down. He shows backbone. You see a Chinese person with tape across their mouth, and you don't have the full context that he's actually being a bit of an idiot in our city. You'll think it's anti-Asian racism, which he accused someone of.
Yeah.
And I know, along as many people in the city know of the incident, and it was a slip of the tongue that had no racial connotations whatsoever, to which he said councillor became quite histrionic about. My fear is that he will start by accusing the councillors of anti-Asian racism. And as his time here becomes more chaotic and he holds this city back, and I would strongly recommend the government enact emergency retroactive legislation to deal with this so we can have a recall election. I think he will come to the end of his term, say the entire city is full of anti-Asian racists, look at what I suffered. And I don't think that's fair, because we've had a Chinese mayor before in this city.
Yeah.
We actually have episodes in the history of Chinese Kiwis which are not at best times as Otago, but we also have a heck of a lot more tolerance and engagement and integration than ever happened in the American West, for example, or Australia, which was horrific. I mentioned those websites because I think if voters and other parts of society have concerns about Mr. Ong's origins, his employment, where he went to university, which seems he did go to university in Sydney, and all these areas. This is not racism. These are legitimate concerns. Now, were I to stand for council, and Richard, who would do that?
Only crazy people.
Only crazy people, mad people. There's no election at the moment. No one is standing, okay? Just follow the rules of the station here. And were I to stand for election, well, I want them to know my family.
Yep.
I would make sure that aspects of my career can talk about or are public. Yes, please ask me questions. I wouldn't be cagey. I wouldn't respond aggressively. And that is what's happening. And I think because he's an enigma and he just turned up in this city claiming a great love, this is his home. Well, as I wrote in the ODT recently, I was born in Chelmsford. Then I immediately left. If 51 years later I stood for Mayor of Chelmsford saying, I love this city immensely, what a wonderful place. Well, my colleague across the desk from me here is also from Essex. He would think, what a strange thing to say.
Yeah.
It's terminology such as the council is a family. They're siblings. They're arguing. No, the council is 15 people elected by us, for us, paid by us to do a job for us. They're not a family.
No.
You see, and the difference is Lee Van der Vis, he has his moments. I respect him for each and every one. Crikey, I don't agree with them all.
Yeah.
But I know Lee Van der Vis to be an upstanding, decent fellow who cares about his friends and family and this city deeply. So whatever he does, he's okay by me for that. But when I see, for example, our local MP was at a football practice, apparently Councillor Ong went up to her, took a picture on his Facebook.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing of taking someone's status. Look how many famous people I know. Look how many important, well-known people I know.
Yeah.
And I have to say, that's not very Kiwi.
No. But and he was straight to the derogatory as well with that particular post as well. It was the photo was taken in order to kind of come in and you know and have a go and attack the person he was taking the photo of. You know, and I've seen a number of incidents online where he's actually been asked to take photos down because he used them in such an inappropriate manner, you know, but then he still argued the fact that he took those photos the way he was supposed to, which actually he genuinely hadn't.
No,
so
no.
which is strange in itself. So I mean, you get anything of this is from an official point of view? Do you know any more about what's going on?
I couldn't possibly comment on that.
No. Fair enough. Okay. Well, that in itself can speak volumes. I want to move on because otherwise we could end up talking about Councillor Wrong all day long.
And I don't want to.
And I don't want to either. But the government's announcement to 143,000 families that get an extra $50 as part of the in-work tax credit, right? We've got a situation. We were talking about the war after we break for the first advert, but we've got a situation where fuel has just gone stupid money. It's just gone. Diesel's now more expensive than 91, right? And it's never been like that in this country in the whole time that I've lived here. And the government has literally come out and gone, we're going to give a small amount of people $50, but they don't know they're driving a car. They don't know that the criteria, it seems, is like it's an easy vehicle to provide that money. That's certainly one thing. But it seems like it's been chosen for the ease of, well, I can just drop $50 into their weekly payment, rather than it actually has any bearing on those people that actually physically need the money. Because I'm lucky, I drive an electric vehicle, but if I didn't, it would be hitting me in the pump as much as it would be hitting those families. I'm not saying they shouldn't get it, but like it just seems it's almost like they can't do what the previous government did, because if they did that, then it wouldn't be their idea. Does that make sense? That
makes sense. I mean, I certainly the previous government, I'm not going to wax lyrically about their financial policy, because it was good at one point when we needed it and not very good at another. But yes, how do you know that 143,000 people are actually driving, using a car? At this point, we unfortunately import fuel.
Yeah.
You see, there's always going to be a point where we'll need gasoline. And I'm not saying put pumps off the coast of Otago, but you need strategic reserves. You need good relationships, and you need to be able to refine locally, which we can't do anymore. You see, one of my beliefs is you're going to have a strong market economy. You need to make sure you have the infrastructure in place. And even if a refinery is government owned or even mothballed, if it's there for when you need it, And I find it ironic this government's trying to push for gas for power generation when we've got one of the lowest uptakes of solar power. When look at the sun in this country, even on a overcast day, I get sunburnt, and I'm of a slightly Middle Eastern complexion, one might say. And I think they need to cut the taxes.
Yeah,
it will impact the budget, and yes, they will have to borrow money. Well, I'm sorry, the ships aren't getting past the Strait of Hormuz. Our suppliers from refineries have other suppliers that may have more purchasing power than New Zealand.
Yeah.
And our main, no matter how many people believe in other types of economy, other sectors, which are all relevant here. I don't watch the Avatar movies. I've watched them once and I can't remember anything but Sea of Blue. Agriculture is our economy. We need to export food and raw materials, and that involves fuel.
Yeah.
And if the fuel is expensive, not only does it impact our ability to go to our lovely white-collar jobs, it also impacts the ability for farmers to work. It means the trains, which move most of our freight, because the road system is so atrocious, they're more expensive. The ferries are more expensive. The airlines are more expensive.
Yeah.
So all you can do is cut back the tax, increase debt, and take the hit, because this is not normal.
Yeah,
it's a war.
And because it's the right thing to do, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the other side for me. Is like it's all well and good to sit there as the government and say we're not going to do that because that puts us in a worse position. But you're trying to protect the government's books, but letting the public's books fall to pieces. You know, and the ultimate consequence of that is that you'll end up with more people on benefit, more people draining the government's books. The actual, it's like you become the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff instead of the fence at the top of the cliff, right? And what we need right now is a fence at the top of the cliff to stop that happening. And just because Labour did it doesn't mean that the next government can't. And at the end of the day, it's just a means to an end. And if you've got to borrow more money, governments can borrow as much money as they like, right? There's the political will, right? It doesn't impact me as a human being if the government borrow another $1 billion this year, or they borrow don't borrow any dollars. My life as a person in the society continues without change, pretty much. Their government books don't look as good. But hang on a second, who are you trying to impress? Because at the end of the day, you're not impressing me because you're leaving me to suffer.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's a crisis. And I find politics here doesn't split on a left-right divide. I've been having arguments in the ODT and the letters page with people on this. Well, you can't say that National's centre-right and Labour's centre-left, because I don't find Labour particularly left and I don't find National particularly right.
No, I agree.
It's like school children in the playground. Could be West Side Story. They're the Rockets, they're the Jets, and all fight dancing outside the beehive. It is ludicrous because the other party did it, we don't want to do it. Because people, and it is our curse as a country, our parsimoniousness. Even in a crisis, we can't have debt. We can't have debt. We can't. Well, you need it. And all countries have a proportion of debt, particularly in times of bad. Very few countries run a balanced budget.
No, exactly.
And now is the time, because otherwise the market economy, the business-centered private economy suffers. And it is ludicrous. It is like school children. They're like they're in a playground. And it shows that we need much more regional representation in Parliament. So not just because we need a voice, but it balances them.
Yeah.
And the argument about a second house, people think it's a fait accompli. I think if we had an elected Senate, which let's say the proportion aspect is in the Senate, the seats are in the House, you might have a little bit more balance. But at the moment, no. When you've got one House and very quick legislation, knee-jerk reactions, look at the ferry cancellation, for example.
Yeah.
Winston Peters didn't come up with a cheaper option. He saved her ass, basically. That's what's happened. So, it's just silly politics, increase the debt, reduce the tax. I'm sure this war will be over, maybe not how Donald Trump says, but I'm sure it'll be over soon. And the fuel will start flowing, but it's going to take 6 months to a year for this to flood through the system.
Talking about politics, ACT Deputy Leader Brooke Van Velden seems to have done their worst in the last couple of years as part of the coalition of chaos to strip pay equity, to do a number of other bits and pieces, not standing at the next election, which is absolutely her right. She's been in politics for 9 years, which in itself is a reasonable amount of time, and some people are in it for a lot less. Some people are in it for a lot longer. Look at Winston Peters. It's 99 years, I think, coming up for Winston. Does it change anything? I personally don't think it does. There's a lot of people that are happy to wave goodbye to the back of her. But I saw a comment from Victor Villett, who was the Alliance Party leader, who's on the show a few weeks ago, and basically saying it doesn't change. Someone will just come in who will just be equally as ACT as Brooke, and the world, the sun keeps coming up in the morning, going down in the evening.
I mean, I find ACT interesting. I wouldn't vote for them, and a lot of the political stuff I don't agree with. I've met lots of the MPs from the top down, and they are an essential part of New Zealand society because we do have a certain patronising, patriarchal, even mother hen way that sometimes officialdom approaches people. And a natural reaction is to have, whoa, don't tell me what to do. And I think that's fair. Of course, you don't go to extremes, and I'm not one for extremes, as you know. But to me, I wonder what the story is here. Because if any other member of the legislature in the world will happily stay there the rest of their career, it's a good life. Yeah, most legislatures. But the New Zealand one has too few MPs, seems to be exceptionally busy. If you are the majority party, most of your people are going to be in some form of government role, which is unheard of. There's no proper backbenches.
Yeah.
And I've known many MPs who's actually said after 2 or 3 years, or 3 to 6 years, 9 years, yeah, I've had enough. Now, if you was in Westminster and you had a safe seat, you'd stay.
You'd be there forever, wouldn't you?
You'd be there forever.
And you see Congress like in the States, like they just never leave it.
Yeah. And so I find that quite interesting. What I also find is that she won an electorate last time.
Yes.
Now, if this was about the electorate maybe switching back to national, then I believe Grant Robertson did what is termed in the UK the chicken run. He was in Wellington Central. The Greens were a genuine threat and likely to win. So he went onto the list. Now, this isn't a chicken run because she could have gone onto the ACT list instead of being in the seat.
Yeah.
So maybe she has had enough. It has been a tumultuous few years. Whilst I appreciate her deregulation urges, she's been quite inhuman about it as well.
Yes.
And some of it just doesn't work well either with the economy or human kindness, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I wish her well. But I just find it funny how MPs just have enough of our parliament after such a short period of time, comparatively.
Comparatively compared to other places in the world.
Must be
and some would argue that it's like that's a good thing because you get turnover of people. But again, it kind of questions our system. That surely like everything, like if you've got a good job, you want to stay in it. If you're achieving great things, you want to achieve more. If you're doing those things, then you've got a natural want to do more of what you've managed to achieve, right? That's like forget whether it's politics or it's just normal life, right? So no one looks to change jobs every 9 years. No one looks to change jobs every 3 years. Everyone's looking to kind of go, well, if I can do this between now, I like what I'm doing. If I do it between now and retirement, I'm happy days. Yeah. So it perhaps speaks to our system that there's not the depth of job satisfaction that you might expect from such a position, because the wage ain't bad.
No, it's excellent. I mean, I wonder if it's part of a wider. I've got this charity and organisation called Workplace Justice New Zealand. I've set up with a few colleagues for the university and other people. I think we have a very caustic work culture at times, particularly in the public service in New Zealand. It's why the charity exists. We provide representation to a very few cases in return for a donation. And we go to parliamentary select committees. And I have been shocked by tales of all over the country in different institutions. I have been to Parliament many times, many times. And I must admit, I get a very different vibe than what I do than when I've been to the French Parliament, the German Parliament, Congress on many occasions. It's quite exciting. I actually find it very difficult. And it's all little interactions. I don't think anybody's deliberately snotty. And I know some wonderful MPs who do great work. But there is this pressure cooker environment, which is astounding, particularly on a sitting day. If you're there on a sitting day, you feel the pressure cooker.
All right.
And that must be difficult. So she does have if this is the reason, it's not because she may be a threat to the leadership in some kind, who knows, then yeah, I wish her well. But yeah, it is interesting because you and I would mostly try and cling on for grim death, but maybe one day we'll be MPs and maybe we'll quit quite quickly ourselves.
As well. I want to talk to you about the war, but before we do that, get a quick word from our wonderful sponsor.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
The war in Iran. I want to talk about that for the rest of the show. And you contacted me like a couple of weeks ago. You contacted me and said, "Hey, look, the war just started. The attacks had just happened." And you said, like, I've got some knowledge around the subject. I'd like to come and talk. This is the earliest we can get you on. But and I think I said to you at the time, I said I could still see that the war would still be going on at that time. So, and it is. And
yes.
and some of the escalation that's happened is extremely concerning in my view. I've held the belief from the very first minute that the first bomb was dropped that it was an illegal war, right? In the sense that even Trump didn't ask his own Congress or Senate whether to go to war, which seems to breach their constitution, but he didn't ask anyone, and he just and it's that whole kind of thing. There's a bad man over there that I think is going to do something bad, so I'm going to act on it. And since that happened, even the chief of terrorism has walked away from that and gone, there was no imminent threat. Now, you're far more knowledgeable than I am about the situation. So perhaps you can give me your take.
Well, I'm ex-military. I know the Middle East very, very well. I'm of a Jewish descent. I know both Middle Eastern countries such as Saudi Arabia, etc. well as I know Israel, Lebanon. Also, I'm very, very clued up on the rules of law, the rules of war. Excuse me.
Yep.
My take on this is I agree with you. It's an illegal act. He did not. It's now a war. It's not a defensive action.
Yep.
Whether Iran has the capability to make a nuclear weapon, I cannot comment on. I have no specific knowledge. But what I will say that what angered me is when they sunk the warship in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, that was coming back from manoeuvres.
If it's not a war, if it's a police action, it was not posing a threat to that submarine, and the submarine sunk that ship. That was that was a war crime. That was an unprecedented act of aggression. I'm not going to blame any country for this because I think what we have are a bunch of toxic males. Hamas are toxic males. Netanyahu's a toxic male. Donald Trump is a toxic male. The regime in Iran are toxic males. They build on these fantasies of conflict and domination and power. And the only people who suffer are the people in Gaza, the people in the Middle East, the people in Israel. They all suffer. And Netanyahu, I remember 30 years ago being in Israel, and one of the people in the room is actually the current president. And I said, I don't like this man. He reminds me of the N-word you don't say in Israel. He reminds me, frankly, in his views of the Nazis. I'm surprised I got out of that room alive. 30 years later, he's not far off. And whilst I do not condone the attack by Hamas, and that's not a freedom fighter movement, again, it's toxic males who are in a fantasy world. And they're not democratically elected. They don't treat people with respect and dignity in Gaza. But then Netanyahu doesn't treat half the population of Israel with respect and decency in Israel. The electoral system is purely proportional. One or two people have a lot of power and they keep him in power. So when it comes to the war, ultimately, was Iran a threat? The answer is no, it was not. There was a nuclear program. Well, a few bunker busters seem to have dealt with that.
Well, that happened before, didn't it?
That happened before,
and that was it. That was Trump the last time around going, we've dealt with it. There's no
borderline illegal, but that's how it was always done.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of whole. I really struggle with preemptive strikes. I genuinely do, because it, like, in my mind, just kind of going like, I've chosen to see someone as a bad guy. So if I hit him first and say he's going to be doing bad things, then I can get away with it. But they'd done that, so they'd gone to that point where they'd gone, we have literally bombed the side of a mountain, and their nuclear powers are in rubble. And he stood up in front of the world and said that. And then suddenly they're going to war because there's some kind of threat. What was it? Were they going to throw conkers at you?
Yeah, because I can't ascertain the threat, and through my scuttlebutt network, I can't ascertain the threat either. And I think that senior members of the US, British, and other militaries can't ascertain the threat. What threat was there? There's a threat now.
Yes.
And the threat was created. Ultimately, Is Donald Trump sane at this moment in time? What is he doing? Because from what I can gather, he's not having talks with the Iranians right now, and yet pretending that he is.
Yeah. Yes.
Troops are going towards the Middle East. He's shown himself to attack during talks for no reason. He's shown himself to be untrustworthy. Again, I have no love for the Iranian regime for the way they treat people.
No, neither do I. And I think there absolutely needed to be a regime change. But I don't think this is going to achieve the outcome that it's supposedly destined to do. You know, and I have never, ever seen a supposed world leader enjoy killing people, standing up and saying how wonderful it is that they've actually killed other humans. It just goes against all my sense of moral and ethics and being a decent human being. Because at the end of the day, yes, even if that person needed to die, if that's the case, and I struggle with that concept anyway, I wouldn't be bragging about it. But there's these world leaders up there bragging that they have killed people. It's just abhorrent.
So that's the thing, you see. Congress has not approved this. It is now a war. Some congressmen are shifting, but not enough. The captain of that submarine, and I know from my understanding of what are now the King's regs, which were the Queen's regs back in the day, to sink that vessel was an illegal order.
Yeah. Because
ultimately it posed no threat, and it was away from the war zone. The Belgrano, you can shift it. There was a war going on. There's a conflict going on, and it was in the proximity. With this, there was no reason to do that. When Senator Mark Kelly said in a video, you can legally disobey an order if it's an illegal order. And that horrific former reservist, Hesketh, lectures him. Mark Kelly, former shuttle pilot, former bomber pilot, fighter pilot rather, Navy aviator, somebody who's been to war.
Yeah.
About military conduct and legality, and tries to have him demoted, his pension taken away. That's ridiculous. That's now encroaching upon freedom of expression, free speech.
That's kind of what you might expect someone like Putin to do, or Kim Jong Un to do, or those kind of people to enact, because there's an act of defiance towards the leadership. Therefore, it's not what you expect from supposedly the leader of free speech and democracy. It's the opposite.
And that's where we're going. I mean, the problem is now, and this is why I wanted to come on the show and discuss it, to say, this is the opposite of democracy. These soldiers should not be obeying these orders. They should be saying, sorry, sir, this is an illegal order. We do not have authorization for Congress. There's no present threat. A war has not been declared. The problem is, as I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, where the heck does that leave us? Because that straight was a first thing on my mind. It was in my PhD. I covered the 67 fuel crisis, the 73 fuel crisis, the 79 fuel crisis. And in there, it's all war, revolution. It's all these conflicts. Now, oil just increased, well, not just, it increased 4 times in price in 1973, the Yom Kippur War. But the thing is, an increase in price, but the oil still flowed, not to America and Holland. For some reason, those two had an embargo for a few days. Right now, the oil isn't flowing. And the question is, do we send a frigate? Does Britain send a destroyer? Does France send a destroyer? Does Germany send a frigate? Do we send submarines? Do we send air defense? Because it's not our war. In fact, I don't think it's anyone's war. It's a very ridiculous conflict, ultimately.
Yep. Yes.
But we need that oil. That oil is important. And also, thanks to the policies of the Luxembourg government, we need the natural gas too.
Yes.
Because he could have just put in offshore wind, solar. The hydro is not just power generation, it's a reserve. If the wind is blowing, the sun is shining, we slow a trickle down in those reservoirs.
Yeah.
And we hold that water for longer. And after the summer we've had, ladies and gentlemen at home, we're holding up inverted commas, summer we've had, they're full. And yet, because of this, we'll import gas because it's cheap, it's a market, yada, yada, yada nonsense, we're now at risk. So the question is, we need to stop ships being attacked in the Straits. The gas must flow. The oil must flow. do we send a ship to do that? Because what I heard, the Kiwis that were in the Middle East, I believe they were in Qatar or Kuwait. I think it was Qatar. They were evacuated back home.
Right.
And so we've said, oh, no, okay. And that's the thing, because we wouldn't be joining the American side, and neither would any country, but we have to keep the strait open. And the question is, Iran is lashing out, and again, this is wrong, at its neighbours, and it's fired a missile at Diego Garcia and at RAF Akatiri, which, for people at home, you may not know, is British sovereign territory in Cyprus, a de facto colony. And it's widening the conflict. Again, these are actually illegal acts of war as well.
Of course they are.
You're screwed on all sides.
But they've been started by an instigation that was illegal.
Yes.
But, within the rules of law, you're allowed to retaliate, right? So if someone attacks you, as in the Americans and the Israeli forces have attacked Iran in this preemptive strike because they felt that there was an imminent threat, Iran is allowed to retaliate, right? Now, then it retaliates, but then it also retaliates in a legal manner, right? Now they're talking about bombing fuel reserves and all that. And as my understanding, I'm not an expert in this at all. My understanding that is itself is illegal under the Geneva Convention.
Yes,
yeah?
It's civilian infrastructure designed to damage. It's an updated Geneva Convention post Second World War, designed to damage the civilian economy. And these storage tanks are important because it doesn't just come out the ground and head to us.
Yeah, exactly.
These disused oil tankers, they carry 500,000 tons of fuel, and they're floating there. They're called floating offshore storage platforms. And you take those out, we're going to have a difficult time. And nobody's making tankers at the moment because the idea, and it is starting to happen, oil's dropping off.
Yeah.
So no immediate replacements. They have to be made very, very quickly indeed.
Yeah.
And so we're in difficult times. Normally, a president like this would have a cabinet who would be sane. And in the first Trump presidency, he did. Now he's surrounded by apparatchiks, nomenclatura, people who are on The Apprentice, radio jockeys, rich people. He knew the Jared Kushner's father is the ambassador to France, and he was actually in jail for a period of time and was pardoned by Trump. He refused to turn up to a summons, which you don't do as an ambassador, and now the French government won't work with him. There is anarchy and chaos, and it may seem like a strong use of language, and I apologize if it offends anyone because I'm not drawing a direct analogy. But when the historian Ian Kershaw described the Nazi regime, you had a leader who sprouted off and a cabinet of people that are effectively competing against one another in their own universes. And anarchy is called authoritarian anarchy. And that's what we have now. That is why the rule of law is not being obeyed, because Heske thinks, well, I'm the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, as he illegally calls himself, because there's no act to change the name from the Department of Defense to Department of War. I can do what I want. Because you've got these individuals who are saying, I can do what I want, this war's happened. And there's a problem. Because in my research, while I was still an academic, I studied behaviour and toxic behaviour and the trends in current behaviour. And I hate to say it, in a lot of that generation went to school in the 80s and the 50s, very small percentage, but still a significant number of people in managerial or executive positions. The idea is, I'm the executive, I'm the manager, I can do what I want. It's taken hold.
Yeah.
And if you have a culture where you do not challenge or subordinates are quiet, God help us. And I think this is not just about an illegal war, the madness of King Trump. I think there's also aspects of our collective behaviour and personality within his cabinet, the wider Congress, which is facilitating this. And we have it in all countries. And I think we should look at this war not just as a few toxic males, which it is, but also let's have some humility and realise it might be a symptom for what we've led ourselves into. And as a society and a world, we might need to change the way we go about things. Yeah,
and I definitely agree with that, because I say, like, it's all well and good for someone to say, I can do what I like, and therefore be supported by a whole lot of people going, yeah, he can do what he likes. But for the other millions of people that sit within that society, for them to kind of go, yeah, there's nothing I can do about it, is concerning for me. Because we should be looking at it and then kind of going, right, we need to figure out how we don't let this happen again. Like when like NATO was formed from the fact that they let the Second World War, and they went, we need to figure out how we don't let this happen again. We need to figure out how we don't let this happen again. Like, you know, there needs to be a coming together of sensible people to kind of put their foot in the ground and go, hang on a second, this kind of conflict shouldn't happen. I mean, like, when is the US going to learn to keep itself away from stuff? Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela. They're talking about Cuba. You know, there's no, they've never. And I'll inverted commas, they've never won.
No, Afghanistan, I knew many people who died. Deeply upset because we were actually doing great work about women's rights, the rule of law, and we just gave it, because of Trump, again, he negotiated a wonderful agreement with the Taliban. We just gave it back to the people who were horrific 20 years ago. There was good work being done there, not just military work, good work on building a society, which frankly the Taliban had benefited from. Iraq, what the heck? Yeah, and again, I knew people who died in Iraq. In this particular instance, it's about the word governance. Yeah, government, where I will do what you will do what I say, but governance is the rules by which you govern. And in my last university job, a professor at La Sapienza University of Rome, that's what we were in, a governance department. And I realized we are all beholden by the law. The law is paramount, not just the written law, but the natural law, the common law, the civil law, the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are also how we behave towards each other. And I think that America had that all the way up to Trump, because we survived Nixon.
Yeah.
We survived Reagan, because Reagan, who I respect immensely, even though I'm on the center, I'm not a Republican. But he surrounded himself by clever people. Trump hasn't done, and none of these people understand the term governments. You are constrained as the boss. You are constrained as an employee. You have to do the right thing, because it's not because it's written down, because it's expected of you. And ultimately, it goes back to the beginning, Immanuel Kant and Chancellor Ongwa. I think this city has been treated as a means to an end for him. Immanuel Kant said, do not treat people as a means to an end, and that is what the population of the US is to Donald Trump and his cabinet. But he also said, do not, in rough terms, the golden imperative, the golden rule, do not treat others as you do not wish to be treated yourself. And ultimately, Donald Trump, there are mutterings, which are public, about the what, where, and how, and what he's done in the last 40 years, which they mopefully will come out after he's died.
Yeah.
But his legacy and his memory might be very different than the one he's trying to create. And I think I've got every faith, like in Philip Roth's book, The Plot Against America, that once Trump is gone, and it's not about a switch to Democrat, he could be replaced by a Republican, normality will resume.
Right.
And I'm hoping that we can flip back into proper governance, rules and regulation. But I think it should be a lesson for New Zealand. We can't have, as Jeffrey Palmer once told me, the fastest laws in the West. 3-year terms, one House of Parliament, no regional government, laws can be changed on a whim by the government. We need a constitution. We need rules. We need expectations, because we always say in New Zealand, it couldn't happen here. I disagree. I think we have to be very wary in New Zealand, regardless of whether it's Labour or National, whichever party, elements within both parties may not have the same respect for governance as they should, and the rules as they should, and maybe think they're there by right or not in terms of duty and obligation. And yeah, that's why I wanted to come on. It is an illegal war, but crikey, it's a complex situation. And we should not be reductive. We should really look at all the different causes, not blame one person. You can have Islamophobia, or you can have anti-Semitism, not blame one ethnic group, not even blame Americans. Understand it's a small group of people who we've allowed to do this because we haven't been strong in the rule of law and governance to say, stop, think about what you're doing.
And that's the perfect place to end. Let you get off to your appointment quickly.
Yes.
You can rush out the door. I'll just finish off without you. So thank you for joining us. We're welcome to see you any time on the show. Cheers, Duncan.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks. And I'll try. Let's do those questions after the fourth time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Richard Knights, and you've all been wonderful. Remember, if you're looking for a robust, respectful adult debate about all things local and further afield, and a welcoming online community that doesn't take itself too seriously, come and find What's News Dunedin on Facebook and join our fun. On next week's show, we're talking to David Bainbridge III, opportunity candidate for Dunedin, and look forward to seeing you next Friday at 12 on OAR FM. And if you want to listen to the show again, or simply share it with your friends, you can find the podcast at oar.org.nz or even on Spotify, YouTube, or your favourite podcast provider.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.